I don't think anybody in the fashion world is actually surprised by the Met Gala theme that was just announced for 2026. And that's because it's been very clear in the last couple years that fashion and art have become so overlapped that they are almost synonymous at times. Fashion shows feel like exhibits, museum exhibits feature fashion, and the editorial shoots that are actually making waves and making an impact are the ones created and visualized through an artistic lens. So the theme, fashion is art, very much makes sense for the moment we're in right now. But I can't help but want to break down the actual phrase, fashion is art, because it feels less like a title of a theme and more like a declaration. And I think that poses an interesting discussion because is fashion art? And the reason I'm thinking about this is because coincidentally, the other day I started this book, Fashion and Psychoanalysis by Alison Bancroft. In the introduction, she talks about how fashion slowly became examined through a more artistic lens. And it's interesting because within the context of her book, she actually makes an argument that fashion is not art, but not in the way that you might think. I just wanted to share this quote because it's really interesting. This is not to say that fashion is art. Fashion relies on being worn by the human subject for its actualization in a way that art does not. And fashion can and should retain its identity distinct from art because of this. However, there are instances where fashion can be talked about in the same terms as art. And while I do definitely view fashion as art, I do like how she poses that it's almost like a third thing because it relies on being fully actualized on the body. It also makes me think about how Marshall McLuhan said clothing is an extension of the skin. And he wasn't even really talking about it from a fashion perspective, but through a communication perspective. But I think that's the most exciting part, how all of these different aspects come together. But one thing I definitely will say, I am very excited about seeing real life clothing more and more in museums because I think it does break a certain barrier when it comes to consuming art. Because even the most extreme maximalist couture pieces have some element of relatability to the everyday person. We can recognize a dress, we can recognize a top, we can recognize an element in a piece that maybe speaks to us in a way or even reflects something in our own closet. Please let me know what you think or if you have any predictions or thoughts about this year's theme.